The Jomsvikings were a semi-legendary order of Viking mercenaries or brigands of the 10th century and 11th century. They were staunchly pagan and dedicated to the worship of such deities as Odin and Thor. They reputedly would fight for any lord able to pay the substantial fees and occasionally fought alongside Christian rulers. Although they were pagan, the institutions of the Jomsvikings in some ways anticipated those of the Christian knightly orders of the later Middle Ages. The legend of the Jomsvikings appears in some of the Icelandic sagas from the 12th and 13th centuries. According to the Norse sagas, the stronghold Jomsborg was located on the southern shore of the Baltic Sea, but the exact location is disputed by modern historians and archaeologists. Most scholars locate it on the hill Silberberg, north of the town of WLAN on WLAN Island. Jomsborg is thought by some researchers to be identical with Jumna, Julian and Veneta, which are mentioned in both Danish and German records from the Middle Ages. Historians still debate the accuracy of the accounts of the Jomsvikings, since the site of the headquarters has never been conclusively located. Confirming the tales of their exploits is somewhat difficult. The location of Jomsborg is a matter of debate in historical circles, due to the scarcity of primary sources. There are no contemporary sources mentioning the names Jomsvikings and Jomsborg, but there are 3 contemporary runestones. Reference also appears in Old Norse poetry and lore save the shore which refer to the battles. The Jomsviking Co. The saga of the Jomsvikings relates that the Jomsvikings were highly selective in deciding whom to admit to their order. Membership was restricted to men of proven valor between 18 and 50. In order to gain admission, prospective members were required to prove themselves with a feat of strength, often taking the form of a ritual duel, or holmgang, with a Jomsviking. Once admitted, the Jomsvikings required adherence to a strict code of conduct in order to instill a sense of military discipline among its members. Any violation of these rules could be punished with immediate expulsion from the order. Each Jomsviking was bound to defend his brothers, as well as to avenge their deaths if necessary. He was forbidden to speak ill of his fellows or to quarrel with them. Blood feuds between members were to be mediated by Jomsviking officers. Jomsvikings were forbidden to show fear or to flee in the face of an enemy of equal or inferior strength, though orderly retreat in the face of vastly outnumbering forces appears to have been acceptable. All spoils of battle were to be equally distributed among the entire brotherhood. No Jomsviking was permitted to be absent from Jomsborg for more than 3 days without the permission of the brotherhood. No women or children were allowed within the fortress walls, and none were to be taken captive. It is unclear, however, whether members were forbidden marriage or liaisons with women outside the walls. History. There are different accounts for the origins of the order. Jester Danoren tells that a settlement named ULAN was conquered by the King of Denmark, Harald Bluetooth, who gave it to the Swedish Prince Styrbjorn the Strong. Harald then provided Styrbjorn with a strong force with which Styrbjorn terrorized the seas. The Nidlinga saga agrees by giving Harald as the founder of the Jomsvikings, but the story of Styrbjorn is not connected to the Jomsvikings. The Jomsviking saga says that the settlement was founded by Palnatok, receiving the location from the mythical Wendish ruler Burislav. Styrbjorn, the Tjartvirkappa and Bigu saga agree with all previously mentioned versions by making Styrbjorn take command of the Jomsvikings, after they already had been established. Styrbjorn of the Tjartvirkappa also tells that among the Norse there were many men from the East Land arriving at Jomsborg, suggesting that it was a settlement of mixed ethnicity. Jomsviking chieftains included Palnatok, Styrbjorn the Strong, Sigvaldi Strud Haraldsson, Thorkel the High, and Hemeng. Accounts of the size vary. In various sources, Jomsborg was supposed to have held anywhere from 30 to 300 ships in its harbour. However, some historians believe Jomsborg was largely a market centre, with its Danish garrison imposed on the Wends. Gestadanorum Stybjana, the Tjartvirkappa and Bigu saga relate that in the early 980s, the exiled Swedish prince Styrbjorn the Strong brought the Jomsvikings to a devastating defeat against Styrbjorn's uncle King Erik the Victorious, at the Battle of the Fyrisvellir, Uppsala, in 984 and 985, while trying to take the crown of Sweden by force of arms. The fact that the Jomsvikings lost was attributed to a pact which the Swedish King Erik made with Odin. 3 runestones from this time, the Hogby runestone, one of the Hallestad runestones, labeled Dr. 295, and the Sjörup runestone, relate to deaths with honor at Uppsala, probably 3 Jomsvikings. The battle is also commemorated in poetry by the Icelandic skald Thorvaldr Hjaltason, who took part in the battle on the Swedish side. Jomsviking saga tells that in 986, they attacked Håkon in Norway and were defeated in the Battle of Hjörungavara. The Jomsviking saga ends with a brief explanation of the battle's aftermath and, in fact, points to this battle as the beginning of the end for the Jomsvikings. After these 2 decisive defeats, the power of the Jomsvikings waned, but Olaf Tryggvason's saga relates that they played a decisive, if treacherous, role in the Battle of Svolder in 1000. At Svolder, a Jomsviking force led by Singvald Jarl abandoned King Olaf of Norway and joined forces with his enemies to annihilate his fleet. This action may have been intended to fight the Christianization of Scandinavia, which had been forcibly promoted by Olaf. As it happened though, the Danish king Svein Forkbeard, who won the Norwegian throne when the sea battle ended, was a Christian. He and his father, King Harald Bluetooth of Denmark, are reported to have been baptized in 965. Jomsvikings are also reported to have raided eastern England in 1009, and made forays into various Scandinavian territories during the early 11th century. Around 1013, the Jomsvikings were campaigning in England on behalf of Sven Forkbeard, yet switched sides, maybe in a rush to get their own Danegeld from the English, while the main Viking invasion force drove Ethelred the Unready to Normandy. The decline continued over the next few decades. According to the Heimskringla, King Magnus I of Norway decided to put an end to the Jomsviking threat. As part of consolidating his control of Denmark, he sacked Jomsborg, destroyed the fortress, and many of the inhabitants were killed in 1043. In fiction, Jomsvikings are the focus of V.R. Edison's novel Styrbjorn the Strong, a juvenile historical novel by Henry Treece. Fictionalized versions of the Jomsborg and the Jomsvikings appear in Guy Gavriel Kay's novel The Last Light of the Sun, which is set in a fictional world that closely parallels 9th-century Britain and Scandinavia. In Tim Severin's Viking series, Thorgal spends time amongst the Jomsvikings, although they are a smaller, older, and weaker force. The legendary Jomsburgers also appear in Creative Assembly's medieval Total War Viking Invasion expansion pack, though they are called Jomsviking. They are the most highly skilled warrior available to the Vikings. A scene in The Long Ships by Franz G. Bengtsson depicts Jomsvikings captured by the Norwegians and about to be executed, exhibiting courage and defiance, some being eventually spared by the captors. The short story The King of Norway by Cecilia Holland, in the anthology Warriors, has at its center the story of the Battle of Hjörungavara. In the manga Vinland Saga by Makoto Yukimura, Jomsvikings play play a crucial part, where some of the main characters are based on Jomsvikings from the sagas, such as Thorkel the High and Canute the Great. The manga depict them as an elite force under Sven and then Canute during their invasion of England, while trying to keep the waning influence on the court. It is also said that Thorfinn's father, Thors, was a Jomsviking until he became a pacifist, fleeing Jomsborg with his wife. This led him to be considered as a traitor and to be ambushed by the band of Askeladd. In the Old Gods DLC for the Paradox interactive PC game Crusader Kings Chapter 2, the Jomsvikings serve as a Norse pagan version of the Christian holy orders. Jomsvikings are central characters in The Deepest Sea by Charles Barnett's. In the 2003 Polish film An Ancient Tale, When the Sun Was a God by Jerzy Hoffman, Jomsvikings are portrayed as marauders in the service of the main antagonist Popil. The story of the 2016 album of Swedish melodic death metal band Amon Amarth is set in the world of the Jomsvikings. Modern reenactment. The legend of the Jomsvikings has inspired a modern reenactment movement. The army of Jomsborg seek to portray Vikings of the 10th and 11th centuries accurately. The focus is on live steel combat, though crafts are practiced by some members. The organization has branches in Europe, Canada, the USA, and elsewhere. Related reading: Larsen, Mats G. Minute av Vikingatiden. Der islandske kongasagorna och deras vald ISBN 91-7353-0654. Halldorsen, Olaf. Danish Kings and the Jomsvikings in the Greatest Saga of Olaf Tryggvason, ISBN 9780903521475. Chartron, Renee, Ian Heath, Mark Harrison, Keith Durham. The Vikings, Voyages of Discovery and Plunder, ISBN 1846030870. Schmidt, Roderick. Das Historische Pommern.